Hey. Hello, cops. Good to see you. How have you been? It's been ages. Yeah, I know. It's the same here. I've been busy. I've been working, just stuff. Real life, not so real life. Been doing a bit of role playing, quite a lot of role playing. Really, I started up a new group. Oh, let's just get the headphones off. Don't need them at the moment. Um, So yeah, but anyway, I am back. It's unfortunately been 2 weeks since my last stream. That was mainly because last week I had a sort of a side project that I did for the people at work. We have some social events and we're encouraged to do a lot of social events because I work for an awesome company. And one of the things I suggested that people picked up on and wanted to try was miniature painting. Kind of felt obvious. So I got a bunch of the Army Painter starter kits that I've shown before and sent them off. I think we got 5 or 6 in total. Sent them off to people in the various offices we have at the company. Hey, Modifian, good to see you. So anyway, we got a bunch of those, and then I designed on Hero Forge. I designed some minis. One mini that I then 3D printed at home. You see, this is before and after the paint. Hey, Minerva, good to see you. So how is your vacation? Still doing well? Have you dried off? I know you've been out in the rain several times today. But anyway, I designed this miniature, printed a few of them, sent them out to people as well, and then we just got together for a nice evening of miniature painting. I just showed them the basics. Nothing fancy, just basically this is the paint, dip it in. I did do something though that I thought was a little advanced, but not too advanced, so I wanted to try it anyway. I actually had them do a wet palette to begin with instead of doing something else. I mean, why not show people this from the start, because it's so easy to make one just using a normal dinner plate, some kitchen towel, whatever they're called, paper towels, kitchen roll, kitchen paper, whatever, and some baking paper. You basically just fold, standard paper towels, just fold it a couple of times. Hey, gotcha. Just add water and put the baking paper on top of it, and you have your own wet palette, and it works really well. I am also getting a little crowded with the camera and the microphone as always. I'm doing my best. But anyway, this little dude is the miniature I painted last week, and that was just private for the people at work. This was a couple of hours work while explaining to people how to paint and assisting them through whatever they were doing. I'm pretty okay with how that turned out. So today though, we will actually be painting one of the characters in the D&D group where I am a DM, and it is actually Miss Yamakawa's character, Saya. You can see we have over there, all the way on the left, we have 2 paint schemes for Saya. One is when she's in her sneaky, stealthy shotgun microphone, the cardio condenser. Yeah, probably. So I could have it, further away. Is that what you're thinking? And just put it up out of frame. But I mean, it seems to go through quite well normally. But before we start, let's just say hi to good old Thuft from the Incorrigible Party. And yeah. But a shotgun microphone, I've never tried those, so I guess that's more fun stuff to play with. Yeah, no, it's not so much me feeling crowded. It's more on the cam, in the face cam here. You've got the camera up here and the micro crouching in, and then the lamp cover and all that. So I'm good. I mean, I'm just basically just always looking down into the miniature anyway. It's just I feel that when I'm looking at the yeah. But maybe a shotgun mic. I should look into those. But back to today's project. I have made a couple of miniatures and just primed them. I also just realized that this camera there is in the way of the chat, so yeah, that worked. Anyway, I've printed a couple of sayas out, and I'll be doing one for her work clothes, which is the topmost one with the red coat, and one when she's in her fancy clothes, out on town, fancy dinner parties, stuff like that. And we'll see how it goes. It's basically pretty straightforward, I guess. We'll just see. I think we'll just start with her work clothes. She is a character in D&D group, as I said, 5th edition. And what do I need? Oh shoot. Yeah, this is a good way to just get sidetracked. You can see on the top of this paint bottle, it has settled and probably separated quite a bit as well. And my trusty old paint shaker died on me. And when did it die, you ask? Well, what about the night before I had to send out 5 Army Painter starter sets that had not been shook up. So I ended up shaking 50 bottles of paint by hand. Took a long time, but it is what it is. So we're gonna need that for the skin. We're gonna need some brown for the... Yeah, my arm was a bit... both arms I had to switch it up. We also need the red for her blouse. We need some... Hey, Bill! Good to see you again. I was just complaining that my paint shaker died on me. I have ordered a new one, and it's coming tomorrow, obviously. Because anything else would be too easy, too simple, and wouldn't hurt me as much. So, anyway, looks like we got some brown on the boots, sort of richer brown. I actually decided to get a good one this time, Bill, instead of buying another cheap Chinese brand, because it's been a little bit dodgy from the start. I hate shaking paint. So I actually just decided to get a good one, and they plug in at about, what, 110 euros? So it's a bit expensive, but it will be worth it. I think actually these ones here, they're called Vortex shakers. They're actually not as such for paint, but it's actually for sort of chemical laboratories and stuff like that. For shaking up sample vials and things. So it should be a lot better quality. So there's some yellow, we have the red, and we need some... Should we go black or should we go really, really dark gray instead for her pants? Hey Emily, good to see you. Yeah, Bill, but I mean, it's... Every time I paint, I tend to shake up my bottles. And one thing is, the stress on my arms and so on. But it's also about, it's a lot better at actually shaking the paint well. Plus, it shakes it a lot better than I can do in half the time. So that's definitely worth doing. What else do we need? That was this. We need a little bit of black as well. I figured I might as well just shake all of it up. Yeah, dark gray. Gotcha. So for those who didn't catch it at the beginning, the miniature we are painting here is actually Mishama character in a D&D game we're running. So she is in charge of all the colors. And also, I need to open up my blouse here, my hoodie, because I'm getting all warm from all that shaking. And we have this and that. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Now, as always, as I say, start with the sort of lowest regions of the miniature. In this case, that would be the skin. And then you just paint your layers, well, paint the features of the model going out from there. So there we go. But anyway, yeah, well, happy lurking, Emily, and thanks for the lurk. And I'm guessing you're working because it's that time of day for you. And I'm sure you're doing something really cool and exciting, and hopefully not too annoying work. So yeah, let's yeah, she's in frame. Yeah, work, that's good. Digital ads. Well, that's still cool. I mean, basically what I did today at work was to take all the stuff I did a few weeks ago and move it to another place in the system because there had been some miscommunication in the beginning about where the client wanted it. Should it be basically on the left or on the right? So yeah, that was it. Oh, the same design in different sizes. Yeah, no. Oh, that sounds... So I hate to say it, Emily, but that does kind of sound a little, if not boring, then at least repetitive. So yeah. Now, but back to last week's experiment with teaching my coworkers how to paint. It went really, really well. They got all of them, I think one of them didn't really get to the boot, but all of them did get through at least most of the model with base coloring and some shading as well. And now the shading was a little bit off-putting to a lot of them because the only shade that is included in that particular Army Painter set is a strong tone, which is sort of a muddied brown shade. And while it does work and work on oh, Emily, 6 sets of the same kind of stuff, yeah, that's approximately 5 too many, if you ask me. But anyway, no, but they got a lot of paint on the miniatures, and they had a lot of fun doing it, and they got really, really sort of involved in the process. But as I said, the shading is sort of a muddied brown, and I could tell that it kind of hurt them. It hurts me as well every time I do it. To you know, take the nicely painted colors, you know, clear, crisp colors and all that, and then you just muddy the entire model. That's just not fun. And doing that with beginners was, well, it was interesting to hear their reactions, because they just went a little wide-eyed when I just say, then you basically just soak, well, not exactly soak, but still put a lot of this shade on the model, and it was a little hard, a little off-putting for them to see all that nice hard work they'd done kind of fall apart. But at the same time, we started doing some highlights as well, and sort of rebuilt the coloring, and then they could see that it really does work. So yeah, but that was a nice exercise. So, what have people been up to lately? Anything interesting? Any news from the front that I have completely missed because I've been living under a rock the last couple of weeks? I'm covering up the miniature again so you can't see it. Oh, Corpse, are you playing D&D tonight? You are, aren't you? It's Wednesday. Oh no. What do you mean Ellie got bit by a boy? Did she bite him back? Did she tear off his head? Or did you do that? I hate it when my brush splits. Not because it splits, but because it means I haven't been taking good care of it. That is a reminder that I need to clean my brush better before putting it away, and I'm just lazy. And now this one is coming off. I had hoped to be able to just keep it. I just got some sticky poster tag or whatever it's called on here, but it doesn't seem like the model wants to stay, so I may switch to a painting handle, even though I would prefer not to do it, because this model has a hexagonal base, and I honestly don't know how it'll fit in the paint handle. Ugh, that sucks when your best friend bites you. No, that's coming off, and I'll just get the painting handle in a little bit. I just want to just finish this hand because then I'm done with her skin. Yeah. Wait, you say nice things, Modifian? I'm not sure if you're aware of the reputation you have, but saying nice things doesn't really go well with that. So it's gonna be a hard sell making people believe it. So anyway, the skin being done, I'm thinking we go for the blouse we got. Okay, so the trim on the blouse is actually dark gray, so let's mix that up. So, question for you wonderful people. Would you be interested in another camera angle that actually shows my wet palette when I'm blending paints and stuff like that? Is that even remotely interesting? Or that just clutter up the screen too much? I think we're gonna go darker. Well, I mean, a lot of things is going on over here when I am mixing up paints. It's kind of difficult because I'm just sitting here. I'm just focusing on that and just chatting. But you can't really see. So when I'm saying, "Oh, we need something more dark than this," you can't actually see what I'm looking at. So I was wondering if I should get another cam and just point it at the wet palette. Well, yeah. Yeah, it's exactly the thing with Modifian. Screen room, the real estate on the screen is rather limited, and the way I tend to sort of throw the miniature around all over the screen, even just having the two color schemes out on the left, yeah. But yeah, switching it back and forth might be an idea, but I don't want to sort of move aside the miniature. I could do like that, of course, and then sit here. I need to think. This is hard. It's actually kind of hard because my camera is pointing in one direction and I'm moving, from another viewpoint. So I'm basically just could do it like this and mixing, but it's still very much sort of up close. Anyway, so the trim on her blouse, jacket, whatever, it's gonna be dark gray. So let's get started on that. I should mention, as always, the music you're listening to is from Adrian von Ziegler, who makes some really great music, and he's really, really kind, allowing people, streamers or people doing non-profit projects to use his music. So that is, yeah, I think that's incredibly nice and generous of him to do. He does a lot of what's called instrumental music, is the term I'm looking for here. And it's really good at setting, the right atmosphere for role-playing games, background music for this. I often use it just when I'm studying or working. It's really, really pleasant. Some of it is a little bit dramatic, which is also fine and awesome. But yeah. Hey, Leland! Hello, hello, hello! Oh, Leland, seeing you reminded me of something. I had my first player kill last night, in like 6 years or so, I think, maybe more. We don't have a lot of character deaths in the groups I've been in, mainly because we had at some point a tendency to have way too many character deaths. And then I think it's just a general consensus was that it was a lot more fun when people actually survive. But yeah, yesterday the party's cleric decided to go off in the middle of the night, as of course there's a little bit more context to it than that. But he basically wandered off on his own into an area known to be infected by hellhounds. And he met a couple of hellhounds, or should we say they met him, and it didn't go well. Fortunately, he got better, so it wasn't a total kill. Yeah. So I mean, they got him back, but he took a bit of a pounding from the nice little doggies. They're kind of mean beasts, but actually on the way back, and they're level 8 at the time. Yeah, they're now level 9 after yesterday, so they were level 8, and the cleric went off and basically just got pummeled by these two. They started by breathing on him, basically. Just one of them. He just tore him to pieces. I think that's the short version. But on the way back, I mean, the fighter was heading out to try and figure out where the hell the cleric had gone. And again, you're getting the short version here, but details missing on this miniature. Well, we're just gonna wing it. No, but so on the way, the fighter then eventually found the body and decided to drag his dead ass back to town, which he did. And then on the way, he of course also encountered the same two hellhounds and more or less killed off one of them in the first round, because a level 8 fighter, it does a fair amount of damage. He's taken the champion subclass, I think. Not that it means that much to me. I'm not deep into the specifics of all the different subclasses and all that. But he basically just pummeled the first hellhound. And then he got chewed up a little bit as well, but nothing too serious. And then he started basically tearing into the second hellhound, who then decided that, and yeah, I may have played them a little bit too intelligent, I don't know, but it just decided that it had just seen its I don't know if it was a brother or sister being just killed by this brute of a fighter. So he just decided to, nah, you know, I'm just gonna head off, and just ran away. And he actually started chasing it and threw a hellhound after it. I don't believe they are, Emily. Emily asks if they're invisible. They are not. So they're quite visible, fire breathers. So yeah, but hey, but we had fun, though. Oh yeah, the fighter was a dwarf with a glaive as his primary weapon. So that was a nice sight to see. Oh yeah, right. The hellhounds in Supernatural are invisible. That's true. Now hellhounds in D&D are, they're, at first glance they don't seem so bad, but the problem is that even though they only have one attack that does these D8 plus 3 or so piercing damage, which doesn't seem like a lot, but they then follow up with another 2d6 of fire damage, which means that if it actually hits you, it's D8 plus 2d6 plus 3 damage incoming. And they got was plus 5 or so on their attack rolls, which is which will actually get quite a lot of people. A couple of the other hellhounds in the area actually took a big chunk out of Saya at some point, and a sorcerer in the party, because Saya, who's a monk, and the sorcerer decided that all these stories about from the locals about people disappearing if they go out in this, out here after dark, that disappear or come back completely insane. Well, oh yeah, pack tactics. Exactly. If there's more than one hellhound attacking you, they will have advantage, which is very fun and very, very effective, I might add. Which is also why after the first hellhound went down to the fighter, the second one knew that there was not a lot of fun in sticking around, because then it would actually have problems hitting the fighter. So yeah. And I mean, if you have problems hitting something that more or less always hits you and deals as much damage as yourself, there's not a lot of point in sticking around, is there? So, but yeah, that's absolutely correct, Leland. Hellhounds have pack tactics, and that is really nasty. Is it hobgoblins that has the same, or is it normal goblins, which is, or is it kobolds? Can't even remember. But some of the sort of fairly small and insignificant creatures you can come up against in D&D, give them something like pack tactics, and still just you can throw so many at a mid-level party, and just gonna go, nah, it's just a bunch of, oh shit, it's a bunch of small people with sticks and they keep hitting us, and then you'll actually gradually wear down even a high hit point party. Of course, a lot of classes do have self-healing and so on, but still it's an interesting thing to see people look at something that on its own is pretty insignificant, and even if there's a large group of them, it's still, I mean, let's take a normal goblin. I mean, if you're an 8 level character, you should more or less remove one goblin per turn. At least, 2 out of 3 turns or so. So you're gonna go through them pretty quickly. However, if the goblins suddenly start hitting you, just dealing maybe 5 5 to 8 points of damage or something that seems small, but if it just keeps on coming every single turn, 1 or 2 of those hits, it quickly adds up. I mean, you don't have that many turns before you start sort of, you know, eyeballing your hit point space on your character sheet, going, okay, this is not where I want to be. I mean, now I'm at half hit points. I'm still doing well, and I mean, there's only 10 goblins left, but I should think about maybe leaving. Then the wizard goes and casts Fireball, and that's the end of that. So anyway, Miss Yavakava, I know these pants and so on may look a little bit too brightly colored. You said dark gray for the pants, but we will take care of that shortly when we start doing the shading on the miniature. Now, but the interesting thing about this group that we were playing in yesterday is that we've actually now been playing for more than a year. I looked it up, and we had the very first session on April 15, 2020. So that's a year and a month ago. And it's that's one of the things I really like about doing the adventure logs we're doing on a site called Obsidian Portal, because you can just go back and see things like this. One thing is just checking your calendar to see when was the first time we had a game session scheduled. Yeah, that's fine. You can probably dig that out from, I don't know if you use Google Calendar, whatever you use. But actually going in and reading the first adventures is very fun. And you can see the progression in the party, not level-wise, but that's kind of the least of it, but also when were players replaced by other players for various reasons. We had one of our players move to the other end of the country, and it just didn't work having him on camera, voice and video, because he was the only one on voice and video, and the rest of us were sitting in the same room, which is my experience, unfortunately, pretty much impossible. It was really hard for him to hear what was going on in the room, and the only way to kind of make it work would be if only one of us talked at the same time. And that's when we're playing real life in real life groups. I actually enjoy having the chat across the table, having to wait until everyone has taken their turn speaking, just one at a time, meticulously. That's just, I don't enjoy it as much. It's necessary to do when you're doing online, but then it's kind of the same for everyone. Well, it is the same for everyone, but when one person is on video and the rest are in the room, it becomes really unnatural and destroys the flow of the role-playing part of the game. And since we didn't want to do a strictly dungeon crawly, roll dice and see what happens kind of game, then the people talking to each other is more important than just looking at a battle map or rolling your dice to see if you hit and stuff like that. So sadly that could not continue. Instead we got someone else to play, very new role player, but yeah. looks like Saya just scraped the knee there. Let's just fix her up. So, with that being done, we should be able to switch to... what do we want to do next? We want to do the red blouse. Yeah. And Emily agrees to having it. It's hard to have one person on computer. We had tried it when our friend had moved away. It only lasted a couple of sessions before we all gave up. It didn't help that he was also now an hour behind us. Yeah. Denmark is a small country, so we didn't have the time zones playing into it. But yeah, that definitely doesn't help. I mean, scheduling things with people in different time zones it's challenging. Can be done if people are flexible. Highly flexible in a certain person's case, but in one of the online groups I'm in with some of the other lovely people here. That's actually not you. I was thinking about a certain guy we sometimes play with who is in New Zealand, and we had it all figured out, and he was 12 hours ahead of where I am and a couple of the other players, so sort of got the time zones mostly figured out. It's still terrible because of the delay, or not the delay, the differences. And then summertime happened, and even accounting for the whole part where North America and Europe don't switch to summertime on the same date, but it's 2 or 3 weeks apart or something like that. That in itself is annoying enough, but when you're working with people on the southern hemisphere, which I also know because I once worked for a company where we had Australian clients, then when you switch, you go in opposite directions. So it went from a 12-hour time difference to New Zealand for me to a 10-hour time difference, which, needless to say, messes up all the sort of standard times you have in your head. And what we could do before would be something like playing at 8 o'clock in the evening here in Denmark. That would be 8 in the morning in New Zealand, which is doable. So, for instance, Saturday night here would be Sunday morning in New Zealand. That's doable. But when you then drop the time difference down to 10 hours, then 8 o'clock in the evening is actually 6 a.m. in New Zealand. Then it gets a little tricky, because either this poor guy would have to get up extremely early, which he did, I might add, much to his credit, or we should start later here in Denmark, which is not good, because then we would have to play until around 2 a.m. I did do a late night session one Friday evening and just realized that I shut down completely at around 1 a.m. or so. We played until 2. And since I was DMing it was not really the best ending of a scenario I've ever made. But I mean, it worked, I think. But yeah, so time zones suck. Well, maybe not so much the time zone. Let's get philosophical here, because it's not the time zones themselves that suck. That's just a representation. What sucks is that people are getting up according to the same sort of light-based schedule, where they want to be awake when it's light outside, and not just everyone being awake at the same time. And I'm not saying that we should all follow GMT or any specific time zone, but just imagine if the entire world just somehow could, and I know this is highly naive and completely unrealistic, let's assume they just decided that now we're just all gonna be on this time zone's schedule and rhythm. Would make it so much easier, because everyone would be awake at the same time and everyone would be sleeping at the same time, not counting people who are doing night work, like police officers, firefighters, nurses, basically the entire health sector. Stuff like that. That's always going to be requiring round-the-clock coverage anyway. But yeah, what do you think? How would you feel about that? Completely shifting your schedule so everyone is awake. Everyone on Earth follows the same schedule, disregarding time zones completely. Imagine how much easier it would be to schedule D&D games across different areas and regions. That is true, Modifian. It would definitely destroy the mental health for those living in the dark time zones, dark times. Which is also, one of the reasons we do follow a light-based schedule. I do know that is that we need the light. Basically, we need the light to survive. And so yeah. Oh, someone's commenting, and I'm just busy painting. How rude of me. So Emily writes, with global warming. When global warming causes us all to move underground, we are no longer beholden to the sun. But then we could do that, yeah, and just use artificial lighting to still have, the light rhythm we need. With vitamin D deficiency will skyrocket, my even says, but that's what vitamin pills are for anyway. Way too many people are reliant on those instead of healthy food anyway, so that seems like a challenge that could be overcome. But yeah, definitely when we all move underground, it's gonna be an interesting experiment. Or maybe we it depends a little bit on how fast things go. Maybe we all just migrate to Mars and start destroying that, instead of sticking around here on Earth. Isn't that one of the sort of recurring themes in science fiction and other literature media, where humans are basically just seen as someone who just destroys wherever they are, which is why we don't try to solve the problems. We're just looking for a way to go to a different planet, because it's apparently easier to just go there and start using all of that planet's resources instead of just fixing our own problems. I don't know. That took a dark turn, I guess. So, the inside of her arm also needs paint. Earlier today, I was discussing lamps with one of the other guys in a Danish miniature painting group on Facebook, and we talked about lamps in general, and he talked about not requiring a magnifying glass. Just a few comments back and forth, and I just told him that I really need it because my hands are shaking and my eyesight is not as precise as it was earlier. And he just went, "Oh, I don't have that problem." I just went, "Young people, I'm so jealous." Nah, he's one. I've never met him, but based on his comment and his work, he's a pretty cool guy. So yeah, that was the blouse. Then we need, let's just go for the boots. Get a little bit of, Okay, I have not used this one for a long time. It is completely blocked in. Yeah, it actually is. Completely gone. There we go. Modifian says that she still teases her brother about his really old, around early 40s. Yeah, well, I'm coming up on mid 40s. So there. Oh, way too much paint. No, that's okay, Modifian. Phones are, well, they're good because it does allow us to communicate without having to boot up the computer and all of that stuff. But they are also a little bit cramped if you're trying to type either fast or long things. So one of the other things I've been up to lately that also takes a little bit of time in a good way is that, along with Modifian and a couple of other people, including her brother, we've started a Cthulhu Mythos group, which Cthulhu Mythos in this case is not Call of Cthulhu, a full-blown role-playing game. This is just a setting for D&D 5e. So we're still full-blown fantasy mode, just with all the Cthulhu stuff, all the Ancient Ones, Nether Ghosts. And yeah, Emily, I know you're a year, you're minus 1 year younger than I am. So yeah, I just turned 44 last month, and it is what it is. But it does remind me, though, we have at work we have a couple of posters of the really sort of company motto, slogan, variety. I guess you kind of know the type. We do have the classic make it count, which I've always found weird because I'm pretty sure our IT department can count, and I always read it as make IT count. And I'm sure someone did think of that because your IT should make a difference count, but I tend to see things quite literally. So I'm just imagining in my head someone trying to teach an IP department how to count to 10. So I don't know. My mind does weird stuff like that. No, but one of the other ones we have, which is kind of, I like that wordplay actually, and it is literally a wordplay, because it says something about ages. They say age is just a number, which is rubbish. Age is a word. And then I just went, that's actually true. I don't know. Do I have terrible humor? I like that it is so, the wordplay on that is that it is absolutely true, but at the same time it's not what's meant, because words have meanings, and it's the meaning rather than the word itself that usually should be in focus. But yeah, it's definitely sort of along the lines of dad joke material. But yeah, I don't know. I just actually, that particular one is definitely my favorite. So yeah, kind of falls into the category of it's funny because it's true. but we're actually making good progress on Saya here. That's one of the things I've come to like about the Hero Forge minis, and also what makes me appreciate some of the other miniatures I paint, is that the Hero Forge miniatures tend to be less detailed than, say, Citadel models. Now, I also, when I asked my group to, design their characters there, I offered to, print and paint them, because I think it would be fun to have the minis painted. And it's a cool project to do, because it's a lot more personal for me than just painting more stuff from a game. Black waist corset. Is that a corset? It looks like, doesn't look like a corset. It looks like just part of the blouse. But yeah, sure. If it's a corset, it's a corset. Yeah, I can see it there. We'll fix that in post-production. And you want it to be black. How far up on the back should it go? Is this kind of like a bolero? Does it go all the way up here? Or further down? I guess it goes all the way up. I mean, just now that I'm actually looking at the details, not just painting. Okay, so let me just find some black then. Nice catch, by the way. Thanks for doing that. That is a lot easier to fix now than later. No, but as I said, I was talking about the details of these models. It means that it's usually a lot faster to paint these than painting the Citadel Warhammer models. And when you're holding them up next to each other, it's really, really easy to see that these have a lot less detail. But at the same time, I don't think that means that much really when you get them on the table. It's more important that they represent the character you're playing and that they have paint on them. I would take a simple model that's been painted over a very detailed unpainted model any day of the week, especially on Wednesdays when I paint. So. So we have, for comparison, let's just bring out good old purple guy here. I mean, I know that Saya has not yet been painted, but if you just look at the amount of details on his skin and on his belt and on his weapons and armor and all of that, it's just even on the sword itself, just bits and pieces that make me kind of go, oops, I need to revisit him and add some color to that sword. But even so, I mean, it's still, yeah. Hey, Wohin! Good to see you! And yes, Wohin is indeed the leader of the Space Clowns. Yeah, how's it going? Are you getting any painting done? Yeah. I'm not entirely sure if it's true to say that WoW has his own hype squad. I think it's probably better to say that he is his own hype squad. Which reminds me, well, I talked to Andreas about playing some Malifaux soon, so we need to find a date for that. Even though they just came out with an they came out with an errata that basically crushes a lot of the masters he likes to play. But yes, we definitely need to find a day to play some Malifaux. I think for my part at least, it would make a lot more sense to play the Henchman Hardcore format. It gives all the same things that you have in full-blown Malifaux, but you have a lot fewer miniatures, which means that you're not bogged down by 1,000 different rules. It's a little bit like being, the death by 1,000 cuts, just 1,000 different rules you have to remember, and the interaction between it, and which model had that, and what happens when I try to attack that model. Except I can't because that other model hasn't activated yet, which gives me a penalty, and so on and so on and so on. But yeah, I was actually thinking the same when it's sort of like, okay, so all the masters you are playing are getting errata. Does that mean that I've been playing uphill this entire time against unbalanced factions? Which actually kind of makes me feel a little better. So, oops. Need a little bit of adjustment. Now we'll do that later. That was the boots. Then we need the, let me see. Right, I'm gonna go for the hair. And yeah, maybe I actually have a chance. I think I've won, what, one game against him? Something like that. You moved my computer and you're like, well, I don't know about the lag part and all of that. I mean, it's kind of weird sometimes that, are you also on Wi-Fi on your phone, or is that on mobile data? Also, I can hear the kitties playing downstairs, which is good. So yeah, so see, that's the thing. I don't know what your setup is, of course, but I do know that a lot of people still have either old Wi-Fi networks at home, or they have computers with old Wi-Fi networks in them, net cards in them, adapters. And that's actually a problem, because then you're highly limited to, I can't remember how much it is. Whereas the mobile data is usually far more than the, well, in the olden days, the Wi-Fi was actually only about 11 megabits. So if you share that with other stuff, or if your computer is downloading things for Windows or updates or whatever you have going on, or if there's just other computers on, or if you have your PlayStation and your TV and your computer and your kids' computers or whatever on the same Wi-Fi, they're all sharing the same bandwidth. So needless to say, that doesn't leave a lot, and that can be why a mobile data network seems a lot better than your own. Or maybe it's just your ISP, which is sort of shared for the entire area. It's just crap. Especially here in the evening when people are not at home. But yeah, there can be so many different reasons for it. It's kind of difficult to say without being there and testing it out and seeing what it is. But at least it's cheap for you, which is good. It's the same here. We were lucky to get a deal with a company that installed fiber network, not out to every single apartment in the area I live in, but they just installed a bunch of fiber optic cables down in our basement, and then we already had cabled networks out to almost every apartment. I think we were missing 25 or so apartments out of the 90 we are, so well over half, and they just installed the rest of it for that. Which means that my 300, both up and down, 300 megabit connection actually is a 300 megabit connection, and it is not shared by other people. And every time I've tested it, it says, well, technically it says the 296, 97 or whatever, because there's still always a little bit of overhead. But downloading games is a lot more fun now. Outside of Twitch, Modifian doesn't notice any issues. A teenager trying to Xbox COD might have a meltdown though. Yeah, I can imagine that. But yeah. But I mean, if you're that invested in a game that you throw a hissy fit over a bad network connection, then you should also invest your money in doing it. That would be worth it. Like I mentioned before, I've ordered a new shaker for my paints, and instead of getting another crappy Chinese no-name brand, I decided to get the real deal. I think the brand is actually called Vortex, and it cost about 110 euros, which is way more than I ever expected to shell out for something that just does what I could do normally by hand. But hey, it is worth it, because I really don't want to get RSI, and I do paint. I do like to paint, and it's so much more fun to paint with probably sugar paint. So yeah. Oh jeez. Whoa, that is that's highly expensive. And I probably should mention that I only pay 70 kronas per month, the connection I have. But yeah, that's the weird part about all these things with internet connections and where you are. And even in the Copenhagen area, you can be in a place where it's either insanely expensive or really poor connectivity, and I don't really know why that is. Of course, out in the what's called the outskirts of Denmark, I guess, even though Denmark's so small that compared to, say, several states in the US, we don't really have anything that's far away from major cities. But yeah, but anyway, out there that they have the problem that sometimes it's just too few people living too far away that for anyone to really want to, make a good internet connection for them. But that's where the government comes in and gives some kind of support, pay, whatever, to make sure that everyone can actually get at least a decent internet connection, because they've deemed that is a necessity in the modern world, and that well, it does get some bubbles, but not a lot. I mean, it's pretty viscous, the paint, so yeah. Yeah, but if I had to, gently roll this bottle between my palms or whatever until all the pigment was properly distributed, I would have to start about a week before I needed to paint something like this. But now there's a lot more viscous, these paints, so it's not that big a deal. Plus I do put it out on the wet palette, so I can see if there are air bubbles or not, and they typically aren't. Isn't, typically isn't. Put it in the microwave for an hour. What, your palms? Yeah, that'll loosen them up. So... Right, so we do have some fine details with the belt and pouch and stuff that I should look at. But before that, we really need to... Shit, is this gonna work? Probably not. Nope, nope. Okay, so this is what happens when you put on way too thin paint. I had some primer left over on the wet palette. The problem with that was that it was already thinned down, and then it's been on the wet palette for actually a couple of hours, which thins it down even more. So now I've just put on some white ink on her belt, which seeps into all the recesses, which is kind of okay, I guess, but it takes forever to dry. Also, for you people watching who are also painting, the reason I don't, again, you can't see the wet palette, but the reason I'm not using what do you call it, water or medium of any kind to thin down my paint on the wet palette is that I actually do it by having water in the brush when I pick up the paint. So I kind of sort of just in time thins it. I find that that is way easier than trying to thin down a huge batch of paint to the right consistency. Also because after it's been on the wet palette for a while, it changes consistency, which means that then all the time and paint, whatever you wasted trying to thin it down to the right consistency is just going to go out the window. And it's a lot easier to just adjust it as I go along, and as the paint settles on the wet palette, I can just, yeah. And I just know, I just like working with it a lot better. It takes a little getting used to when you're doing it like that, because you need to do more adjustments as you go along. But I find that overall the final, so not the product is as crap as usual, but the process I find to be a lot better. Let's just give this a pouch a little bit of help when we need to make it brown a little bit. But yeah. Now the belt here is going to be yellow with some brown in it, which means that to get sort of the yellow orangey effect to go properly, I really need to fix up all the black that I painted over the lines and into the belt. also means I'm gonna sort of adjust and move a little bit away from the cenital highlight I did to get a more solid white to paint on. I find that it's easiest to do that instead of trying to get a yellow or orange to probably cover over something like a cenital highlight or even sort of a dark gray prime. But I mean, right here you can probably see that compared to the sash going down on her leg, the belt should stand out a lot clearer because just fixed it up with some pure white here. Yeah, it kind of seems like I won't be finished with her in this session, but that's fine. Then I can just do the other paint job either off green or next week, time permitting. And we won't be playing again for another 2 weeks. Our group is called every other Tuesday, with the sort of subheading that you can't be a hero every day, but maybe every other Tuesday will be fine, or whatever. And again, that's an interesting thing about campaign names or group names and so on. But can you remember who actually came up with the name for our Cthulhu group? The name, by the way, is Gibbering Fools, Gibbering Idiots, Gibbering Fools, I think. We're not quite there yet, but I am working on it. Anyway, we're getting pretty close to this. Now, what did you want for the central part of the belt? Is still gray. Okay, we're gonna plop that in at the end. And then the oh, you want the pouch to be red as well. Cool. Yeah, that's doable. And a good choice. So and before people complain about Mishima Kava not redeeming or using points to pick a color, I promise all of you that after you and I have played role-playing games consistently or frequently, regularly is what we're looking for, regularly for more than 20 years, I will paint a miniature exactly to your specifications, or at least color scheme and as close to it as I can come. I'm also not seeing any messages in chat, which could be anything from Twitch chat glitching out on us again, or you guys just falling asleep. But yeah, the offer was that if you played role-playing games with me for more than 20 years, I will happily paint you a model. By the way, the picture of you in the nettles, Vanilla, I forwarded it to my friend who wants to try disc golf, but not until it gets warmer, and just said, this is what you might end up with. She had a very dry comment for that. She basically just said, well, guess I just shouldn't throw it out in the nettles then. And it kind of goes, yeah, okay, so if you can control that, good on you. Good on you. But let's see how that goes. Okay, so the entire sash goes like so. That makes sense. It's really nice to actually have a close-up of the miniature from Hero Forge. So I can really see where the different parts of the miniature is, where the colors should go, and all that. Right there I was just looking at the belt, which is a sash / belt, which is tied in front of her, and just looking at, okay, so this is the knot, and the gray rope that goes in the middle is fully covered by the knot. So I didn't have to look at the miniature itself. I could just check on the image. It's the same image you see down to the left. I just have it up in another window in a lot larger. Yeah, but speaking of disc golf, I've been playing way too much disc golf these last couple of weeks. We had a period with pretty decent weather, with some absolutely terrible days in between, weather-wise. And it's not that there's anything like bad weather, blah blah blah, the usual holds. However, if you are going out to play disc golf, it's just not as fun when it's pouring down. Not so much because you get drenched, most because it gets really difficult to actually get a good grip on your discs, and then they just go flying all over the place. So yeah. No, but it's just the sort of late spring, early summer nights when it actually hits 15, 18 degrees centigrade and sun is shining. It's light until 9:30, almost 10 o'clock now. It's just so nice, just getting out there, throwing some discs, spending way too much time looking for them in the bushes and in the trees and in the brambles and all that. But yeah, I've once again been really pleased with a lot of the people I've spoken to and out playing. So many nice people out there, and usually if I go out and play on my own, a lot of people would just let me throw out from the tee spot with them, and then just go ahead and overtake them. But at some point I either just don't care anymore. I can just see that there are way too many groups that I'm going to be catching up with every single hole, and then I try to just ask if I find a group of people who seem to be I usually prefer a little bit better than I am, because then I can pick up tricks from them, or easier to pick up tricks from them, and just ask if they don't mind having another person in the group. Usually I only do that if there are only one or two other people. If it's three, it would be a four-person group, and it's a little bit too many and can start clogging up the course. But it does mean I've played some really nice round with complete strangers, and I've learned something every single time, and that's really, really cool. And I think it's so nice that people just accept that and kind of embrace that as part of the sport, because playing with other people, having going from 2 to 3 people in a group will of course mean that it takes longer for you to play the course. But the reason I'm overtaken or asking them if it's okay to join them is because there's so many other people out playing that a lot of the waiting time is not from a third person in the group throwing alongside them. It's basically just from the sheer number of people being on the course itself. And then you just chat with people, hear their experiences, how long they played, and what they found difficult when they started, and all that is really nice. And yeah, Bishamakabe misses throwing plastic. That is absolutely true. Well, I guess it's true since you're saying it, but I can totally get that. It was great you came out with me and our friend on, what was Monday? Sunday? Monday? Probably Monday. That was fun. But yeah, there were some details on the sword. So what do we have? You have a bit of that there. Is that Yamakavit? Is that red you have on the sword? I think it is. Oh, not the blade itself, but the crossguard appears to be metal, and then you have sort of the decoration and handle. Should probably, yeah. I'm gonna go for some red on that as well to kind of make that one of her central colors. Hey AJ, I am doing fine, thank you very much. What about you? You are avoiding studying. Well, you've come to the right place. I think I can say that I excel at avoiding studying. I practically haven't done any studying for 20 years now. This is, of course, if you don't count half a PhD as studying or just keeping up to date with, tech side of things at work and all those. But sort of actual legitimate sitting down, opening a book, studying. I have not done that in about 20 years. So what particular studying are you avoiding? Reactive oxygen species. So oxygen now have different species. That is interesting. I seem to recall that there is actually a radioactive isotope, oxygen isotope. Am I misremembering that? Something they use for tracers in the body when they're doing PET scans and stuff like that. So AJ is doing pathophysiology pharmacology combo class for your nurse practitioner degree. That sounds way over my head. But hey, I'm an engineer, so I should actually have some kind of complete rubbish to say about it. Isn't that what kind of defines engineers? We talk about a lot of stuff we don't know anything about. Yeah, the body is a machine. That is true. So yeah. But other than Oh, AJ, the puppies. How are the puppies? I have not been keeping up to date with anything. Are they still doing well? Are you keeping all of them? Are you getting more? Gonna end up with 200 puppies at home, you know. So the puppies are good, 7 weeks old and becoming fully weaned, getting their teeth. Oh, that's nice. That is so nice to hear. I'm so happy. I'm so happy for you that you got another litter. Meanwhile, over here, I've actually now had the kittens for over 3 weeks. And we are progressing to the point where they come out a lot faster or quicker at night. It's easier to tease them out from under the couch. I actually do think they spend all the day there. Woheen says my body isn't a machine, I say more of a fungi. Well, I guess you would know. I mean, it is your body after all. So yeah, there's a lot of work for your education, but you take study breaks for painting chill streams. Thank you, I appreciate that description. I like to think that it's a pretty chill stream, just chatting about whatever. And yeah. Okay, so other than the blade itself, which is the name of a Joe Abercrombie book, I think. Book or series, I can't remember. I think it's just one of the books called The Blade Itself. But yeah, but other than the blade itself, the base coat is done. I'm not going to do the base just now. It's going to be splattered by Paiting. Also, Yamakawa, do you actually want some decorations on the base, or do you just want it flat? By decorations, I can show. I have some stuff like this, small bits of grass. We have the different ones here, kinds of gravel, rocks, whatever. We have the larger rocks. Just I never got any further with these ones, these bases here. They still need shading and highlights and all that. But I can also flop in a rock or two like that on her base. Do I have anything up here? Nope, I don't have anything with nice bases nearby. So if you want anything, just let me know. So, anywho, I should just quickly do the blade and just give it a nice bit of black, I guess, in preparation for metal. And now, Saya is technically speaking a monk, but with a well, how should we say it? She's leaning a little bit towards being an assassin. Is that completely off? You're chilling, but you're also glancing at my book. Yeah, I know that kind of studying. Yeah, and Saya's player confirms that she is a monk with a tendency to being slightly assassiny. Let's. I'm trying to find a balance between holding the miniature in a way that I can actually see the areas I'm painting and showing it to you guys while I'm painting it, so it's not just my hands blocking the sight. And usually I think it kind of works, but sometimes it just needs to flip the miniature on its head, and then it's almost impossible to not block it out. But anyway, here we go. That's one black blade. That's gonna get, of course, a dry brush of some dark metal for the underside and some brighter metal on the top side to give a little bit of highlight in it. And yeah. So the strings in the middle that you can't see because of lights on the corset, it's going to be done at the very end. No point in doing that right now. But it is time for some shading. And let's start out with the fun parts. Well, I don't know if the fun parts, but I always enjoy shading the skin on these models here, because it just instantly adds, oh, that's shady, it's very shady. Well, you know that, you know me. No, I just really like shading the skin, because that just adds a lot of personality to the character right away. At least I like to think it does. Is when especially the face and hands, like we're doing here. Not so much the if she had, you know, bare legs, or the other dudes I showed before with the bare torsos and all that. I mean, it does give some, but the defining features of the face and the hands, to me, always just does something to make the miniature come to life. So that's one of the reasons I like doing that as the first shade. In addition to it being, again, one of the deepest lying areas, so it makes sense to do that first and then work your way out on the model. But I mean, when I'm at this stage after the base coat, then making the character come to life means that the rest of it will be so much more fun to paint. That's again, that's how I work and how I think with these things. So yeah. So, how are we for time? We still have about half an hour left. That's pretty neat. That means that we can definitely get through all the shading on her and then leave her to dry properly. Now, she's got way too much shade right here around her eyes, but that's easily fixed just by taking a slightly moist brush, just not scraping or scooping it off. Just put your brush there and let the bristles soak up the excess shade. And there you go. Much better. Now it's still pooling quite nicely around her nose, which up close seems a little bit too much actually, but at a distance it means that it will emphasize her nose, almost not quite cell shading it, but that does mean it's visible at a distance. Also visible on camera here, which is pretty cool, because that's what we want. We want this to look good at a distance, you know, when it's on the table. And now the next fun part here is actually going to be good old trusty Nuln Oil. I know that if you look at some pro painters, they actually make a really good point in favor of not using shades, but building up all your highlights from the bottom, so you base coat in what's effectively your darkest color of the shades. But I like to do it a little bit faster, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna keep using my Nuln Oil for a lot of this. Wait, what do I actually want to do with the brown? Yeah, we want the brown to be sort of a rich brown, so that shouldn't get Nuln Oil. But the pants here, okay, this is actually kind of interesting, because usually the Nuln Oil will leave a far darker sort of finish instead of what it's doing now, which is why I went for a slightly brighter gray. So I may either need to give it several coats, or if Yamakawa prefers it, just do a repaint with a darker gray, which is also an option. It is actually getting a lot darker than the original color, which is fine. That's what I was hoping for. It's a little uneven here, the back, but that'll be fine once it dries up. I'll just give it another layer. Let's see. No, not enough light to really see that, but compared to the darkness of that, yeah, it's gonna be compensation. If you just look at her color on her vest, blouse, whatever, and compare that to the legs, you can see that it's clearly darker on her pants. So let's just do the vest as well. And for the vest we also need to do the shirt, because it actually turns out that if you want to get a really good and interesting red, you can actually get away with using a black shade on it. That surprised me a lot when I heard it, but then I tried it and I gotta say it works. Now it does have to be a somewhat thin shade like this one here, so it doesn't destroy the base color too much. But then again, with a little bit of highlighting back up to the original red color, or even a brighter red, that does work really well. I've done that on a lot of my Malifaux miniatures for the Perdita crew, the family called, faction is called Guild, and the keyword is the family. They're monster hunters, gunslingers, and all that. I did a lot of red on them, so I actually have a lot of practice doing that. As for this model here, it's kind of interesting because it looks like part of a chest is actually, actually seems like I can see the polygons from the model, which is strange. I've never had that in the models from Hero Forge before. When I watch in the Slicer software, as it's called, where you prepare it for 3D printing, you can see all the different polygons and all that quite clearly, but I've also always seen that as being a representation, because once I printed it, it would be smooth surfaces. And most of it is also smooth surfaces here, except for basically her bosom, which is highly polygonated, if such a word exists. But I can't really figure out if that is kind of the model, or if it really is just the polygons or whatever. But yeah, I mean, here on the pouch, it's a lot clearer to see what the black shade really does for the red color. If I can keep it steady, it tones it down a lot. But once it dries up, it will really settle into the recesses, which I quite like. We should probably also go, since the hair was described to me as being really brown, almost black, just gonna go really heavy on that as well with the shade here. I started out with a dark, sort of dull brown, so it isn't the vibrant reddish brown you'll see on some trees or leather or stuff like that, but more sort of an earthy brown, and just covering that with some black shade and helping it into the right spots and the right recesses should be enough. And just after that, do some very selective highlighting, I think will be enough. So just not do a full back up to the base color highlight, just take a few places and go, this little bit of hair should be more visible and so on. So yeah. So that tones it down, but not too visible on camera, but visible here. And when you get to see it, Yamakawa, you'll hopefully appreciate the subtleness of the shading, which is a tricky way of saying that I'm not going to do too many highlights and shadings and stuff like that. I'm just going to leave the paint to work for itself. So yeah, so that was easy. And finally, for the sash, we need the sash and we need the leather parts. Cool. Also, a lot of people complain about the Citadel parts. That came up again in one of the Facebook groups I'm in. And I was thinking about it here because it just took it, one-handed, once it's opened, I just took it like this and just closed it with my thumb. And to me, this just feels stable and steady in my hand, but people complain about knocking them over all the time when they're opening or closing them. If you just hold it firmly and just pop it open. I'm not entirely sure how people open it. I mean, I have a clip somewhere about me knocking over, sort of physically knocking over an open pot. I mean, you can do that no matter what. And of course, the open pots, as opposed to the dropper bottles, yes, they will spill more, but that's kind of, if you knock over a bottle of paint, paint is gonna come out. But it's difficult to open and close them. I don't really get it. I've never had problems with that. But anyway, that was That's just me sidetracking. So we need, for the boots, we are not going all the way down to, black, but are we going, I think we're going sepia with this one. Oh, I was just reminded of something because I actually have this one right here from my birthday last year, and the very talented Miss Yamakava actually made this one for me. So that was, just after the lockdown really hit us, and after the first month of not really talking to anyone, she dropped this one off. So it's actually here, and I can see it's right next to my monitor where I'm painting. So I'm keeping that one. I really, really like the work you did on that. Could be that, or it could be... Oh, we could also go... Nah. I'm just looking at the different shades of... Sorry, the different shades of shade. Terrific. I'm just gonna stick to the sepia. And I totally get how it would be better to paint the darkest color you want and then build up the highlights from there, because with the shades you're still kind of limited. Of course you can mix your own shades. That's always an option. Always an option to mix and match and experiment with that. So I totally get that. Just doing the color you want for the shadow and then doing the highlights on top of that to go to the different levels or layers of paint and brightness of the paint of the color. But at the same time, shades just makes your life so much easier. And 9 times out of 10, if you're just doing tabletop standard, which is what I'm always doing, people won't really appreciate the extra detail you do get from manually doing all the highlighting and shading and stuff, compared to the extra work added. I think shades are a good trade-off. And Yamakava asks if I can just paint the base black like the shadow she moves in. Sure, I can do that. That's the easy solution. Provided that I can actually figure out how to do a decent flat, evenly covered black. But yeah, sure. Not a problem. This shade is actually behaving a little strange. It seems a lot thicker than it usually is. Which is odd, because if it hadn't been... if I hadn't shaken it enough, it's usually a lot thinner. That's fine. It just means that the black or sort of dark brown leather boots just got really brown. Which I guess is a good thing. And of course there's going to be some highlights on it as well, so it's going to be better. Just do the sword handle here. Okie dokie. And now this is kind of fun because the entire model just shifted kind of an octave down in color after the shade got a lot darker. And the only thing I haven't painted is the bright yellow sash, which is now stands out as being even brighter. But let's mess that up right away with the orange ink that I don't have. So I want to have it sort of flaming orange. So we're just gonna have to mix our own. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna take the rest of the stream getting it mixed just right, because here we need to play around a little bit with both water and medium. I'm gonna go glossy medium for this to really make it shiny. And we want, what do we want? Do we want a little bit? I think we want it to be a little bit more reddish in color. Do we want? Yeah, we want this one. So this is actually, this one I'm actually gonna move it in here. Try and see. I mean, the orange blob is obviously orange paint. The white blob is a glossy medium. Just gonna add in a little bit of red to hopefully get a sort of a fiery orange instead of just the regular, which is called orange fire. But I just want it to be even more fiery and so slightly redder. And it is working. I mean, it's definitely getting to be more orange than the first orange was. But we need to thin this one way down. With all the water that I have hidden over here, do a little bit of water and then some thinner medium as well. And see, this is the part where I don't like mixing paints in the wet palette, because whenever what's called, whenever you mix it up and thin it down and all that, for me at least, it always just fills more and more space on the wet palette, because to get all of it scooped in, you need to kind of go and extend the blob a little bit. So that also means that it will dry up faster. And yeah, anyway, this needs more shaking. And yeah, Miss Yamakawa says that with all this work on that mini, it would be a shame to kill off Saya now. That is absolutely true. However, you do know that the best way to get a character killed is to find and paint the perfect mini for it. So this here, adding the thinner medium, doesn't change the color, of course, which it shouldn't, but it does make it a lot thinner. So now, let's see what's the consistency. I think we're kind of good. Probably need just a little bit more. This is where I don't have that much experience with if it should be water or if it should be medium. That's best for thinning it down. Oh, and yeah, I'm kind of going young fool only now at the end, do you realize? Because Saya's player is just realizing that there may be something about this saying that the best way to get a character killed is to find and paint the perfect mini for it. That also means that I will get rid of a character in the group where I'm a DM that constantly sort of what is called shadow jumps, shadow shifts, basically bounces all over the place. So yeah, but anyway, that was kind of the mixing process of doing an ink. And for comparison, we have, this is the shade I used before. This is kind of how it flows. You see that it flows back a little bit if I do like this. So what happens if I try to do the same, the orange one I just mixed? See, it's actually still too thick. It does does come in a little bit, but I think we need more water in it. And this is the second part about mixing all of this. I now have a very large blob of orange paint, and I'm gonna need like nothing for the belt. That's the whole, you start with a little bit here, and you take a little bit there, and you take some more here, and all of a sudden, all the different things add up. I mean, a drop of medium, a drop of gloss medium, a drop of orange, a drop of red, a drop of water, 2 more drops of water. Yeah. But anyway, we'll get there. I think now we're... That's a pretty decent consistency there. The way it flows back now resembles the sepia. But it just said that the sepia struck me as being too thick. Doesn't matter. We'll deal with that in post-production. So, let's see how it goes. That is looking really nice. It actually does work quite well, I think. And because my table is slanted a little bit to the front, this very lovely large blob of orange ink I've mixed is now slowly migrating across my wet palette. Isn't that lovely? So I think this is basically it. Okay, so let's get the wet palette out of the way. So I don't know, what do you say? Does that look sort of vibe? It's gonna be get some highlighting up on the yellow to bring that back fully. This does seem pretty nice. A little bit too much orange here. Definitely some orange spilling down on her pants. But yeah, I think this is where we end up for now. To just round this off, the next couple of steps will be to bring the highlights back up, on the skin, on the blouse, a little bit on the pants. Not too much on the pants though. She is still supposed to have dark gray pants, which it does now. Maybe a little bit of edge highlighting on the collar up here to just make it pop a little bit more. Got some yellow highlights on the belt and the sash, and then the belt going in the middle is going to get a gray finish. Is that what you wanted? Maybe a bit of highlighting on the boots as well, but the sepia is actually, once now it's settled down, it does look pretty nice, like dark leather. I'm going to touch it up just a little bit, but not going all the way up to the sort of rich brown we had before. Finish of the sword, a little bit of highlight on the hair, and we should be good. And then a flat black base was what you wanted, so that is what you're gonna get. I should maybe just do an argument for doing something like this finish here, where we have kind of the gravel. It's still dark, it's still very sort of in the shadows kind of way, but it does add a little bit of texture to the base, making it pop a little bit more when it's on the table. At least I like to think so. So yeah. So you're cool with the gravel Just trying to make sure you're actually saying yes to the gravel and not to something else I said. Okay, we are good to go on the gravel. Cool. Coolness. Anyway, this has been me painting. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for hanging out. I, as always, enjoy your company. I will just quickly go see if there's someone worth rating, so please stick around and let's see if we can find someone. We have, of the people I know, this is actually becoming a tradition, crashing the jam called Moko Made, which is a couple of siblings, Devin and Derek, just sitting around. They call it the sibling shit show. Basically, they just chat and chill and hang out, do a lot of arts, sewing, painting, stuff like that. I find it quite relaxing and cool to do, so stick around and we'll go surprise them with a raid. If I can get it to work. I also kind of think I need a new computer for my streaming setup. It's a 6 or 7 year old computer and it's really hard pressed on all fronts. But anyway, thanks for joining in. I have been Skjalm, painting miniatures on this very nice, lovely Wednesday. I hope you have a wonderful night and I will see you again next week. Bye now.